Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. Nickelback.
Nickelback is a Canadian rock band formed in 1995 in Hanna, Alberta, Canada. The band is composed of guitarist and lead vocalist Chad Kroeger, guitarist, keyboardist, and backing vocalist Ryan Peake, bassist Mike Kroeger, and drummer Daniel Adair. The band went through a few drummer changes between 1995 and 2005, achieving its current form, when Adair replaced drummer Ryan Vikedal.
Nickelback is one of the most commercially successful Canadian groups, having sold more than 50 million albums worldwide and ranking as the 11th best-selling music act, and the second best-selling foreign act in the US of the 2000s, behind the Beatles. Billboard ranks them the most successful rock group of the decade. Their song, How You Remind Me, was listed as the best-selling rock song of the decade, and the fourth best-selling of the decade.
They were listed number 7 on the Billboard Top Artist of the Decade, with 4 albums listed on the Billboard Top Albums of the Decade. The band signed with Roadrunner Records in 1999 and re-released their once independent album in the state. The band achieved commercial success with the release of their 2000 album The State, and then they achieved mainstream success with the release of their 2001 album Silver Side Up.
Following the release of Silver Side Up, the band released their biggest and most known hit today, How You Remind Me, which peaked number 1 on the American and Canadian charts at the same time. Then, the band's fourth album The Long Road spawned 5 singles, and continued the band's mainstream success with the hit single, Someday, which peaked at number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 at the Canadian Singles Chart. Afterwards, the band put out their biggest album to date, All the Right Reasons, which produced 3 top 10 singles and 5 top 20 singles on the Billboard Hot 100, example of songs like Photograph, Far Away, and Rockstar.
The band's album Dark Horse was a success which produced 8 singles, one of which peaked on the top 10 on the Billboard Hot 100, and 2 of which peaked on the top 20 on the Billboard Hot 100. In 2011, the band released their 7th album Here and Now, which again topped the charts.
Their 8th studio album No Fixed Address was released on the 17th of November 2014, and the 9th studio album, Feed the Machine, is scheduled for release on June 16, 2017. The band is based in Vancouver, Canada. The band's original domestic signing was with EMI Canada. They subsequently obtained an American deal with global distribution via Roadrunner Records. For the release of their 7th album, the band parted from EMI Canada and signed a new Canadian domestic distribution deal with Universal Music Canada. History. The band was formed in the early 1990s as a cover band called the Village Idiots by Chad Kroeger, Ryan Peake, Mike Kroeger, and Brandon Kroeger. The band later changed its name to Nickelback, which originated from the nickel and change that band member Mike Kroeger gave customers at his job at Starbucks. He would frequently say, "Here's your Nickelback." The band performed covers of songs from Led Zeppelin and Metallica. Chad Kroeger then asked his stepfather to give him $4,000 so that the band could record their first demo, a 7-track EP of original material, called Hesher. Curb and the State 1996-2000. In 1996, the band recorded and released their first full-length album, Curb. Fly was included on both Hesher and Curb and was the first single produced by Nickelback. In 1997, Brandon Kroeger left the band and the band searched for a new drummer. Later that year Mitch Gindon joined the band, but he decided to leave in 1998 because he started working in a car company. In summer 1998, Ryan Vikedal joined the band. Roadrunner A&R Ron Berman told Hit Quarters that one of his West Coast scouts sent him the self-released album and, suitably impressed, he traveled to Vancouver to see them perform live. Although an unknown property in the industry at the time, the venue was packed out. In Berman's words, "I immediately got the chills. I thought their song, Leader of Men, was a smash hit." Off the stage he was impressed by their industry and initiative in managing their career. Despite this, it still took Berman 3 months for him to convince his label bosses to approve the signing, a decision that would mark Roadrunner's first move into mainstream rock. Nickelback signed a record deal with EMI and Roadrunner Records in 1999. The State was released by Nickelback in 2000 by Roadrunner Records and EMI Canada. The State was released in Europe in 2001. It spawned 4 singles, Old Enough, Worthy to Say, Leader of Men and Breathe, the last 2 being top 10 rock hits. The album was the band's first album to be certified gold status, and it later went into platinum status in 2008, after the success of the later albums. The album entered the Billboard 200 at number 130 and peaked at number 3 in the Billboard Top Heatseekers Albums chart and peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Top Independent Albums chart. Silver Side Up in the Long Road, 2001-04. Around 2001 Chad Kroeger started studying every piece, everything sonically, everything lyrically, everything musically, chord structure. I would dissect every single song that I would hear on the radio, or every song that had ever done well on a chart, and I would say, why did this do well? Kroeger said that Nickelback's singles chart, How You Remind Me, sold so well because it was about romantic relationships, a universal subject, and contained memorable hooks. To record their third album Silver Side Up, Nickelback collaborated with producer Rick Parashar. The album was written before the release The State and was recorded at the same studio. The disc was released on Tuesday, September 11, 2001. The album peaked number 2 on the Billboard 200 with over 177,000 copies sold in its first week, and peaked number 1 at the Canadian Albums chart, making the band's first album to do so. The single, How You Remind Me, was a number 1 single on the mainstream and modern rock charts, as well as the pop chart. It also peaked at number 2 onto Adult Top 40, and became the Billboard Hot 100 number 1 single of the year for 2002. The next single was Too Bad, which also reached number 1 on the mainstream rock chart. The final single from the album was Never Again, which also won hit on mainstream rock. In 2002, Chad Kroeger collaborated with Josie Scott on the Spider-Man theme song, Hero. This recording also featured Tyler Connolly, Mike Kroeger, Matt Cameron, and Jeremy Taggart. In 2002, Nickelback released their first DVD Live at Home. In 2003, Nickelback released The Long Road. The album was certified 3x Platinum by the RIAA in March 2005. And it had sold 3,591,000 copies as of April 2011. It has sold over 5 million copies worldwide, and in 2003 only the album sold 2 million copies worldwide. It debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200. This was their first album produced by Joey Moore, a former classmate of the band's. It was ranked number 157 on Billboard's 200 albums of the decade. It spawned 5 singles,
The lead single was Sunday. The band also released Feelin' Way Too Damn Good as a single, which peaked at number 3 on the mainstream rock charts. Figured You Out was also released as a single, and topped the mainstream rock charts for 13 consecutive weeks.
Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVD Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.